All right, let's tackle a huge question in education today. How in the world do you teach skills like critical thinking and creativity? The stuff that's absolutely essential for the 21st century, but can sometimes feel, well, impossible to teach. Let's dive in.
This is the central challenge, isn't it? The world is just changing at a breakneck pace. The jobs our kids will have might not even exist yet. So, what skills are actually going to matter? And for years we've been hearing this steady drumbeat from employers. They're not just looking for people who know a lot of facts. They need people who can think on their feet, who can work together, and who can come up with brand new solutions when things get tricky.
But here's the thing. This is so much bigger than just getting a job. This is about being a citizen. The ability to actually think for yourself, to look at evidence and make a judgment. That is the absolute bedrock of a functioning democracy. It's what keeps the whole system healthy.
So, that brings us to the million-dollar question. Are these skills something you're just born with, or can you actually teach someone to be more creative, or to think more critically? Well, let's see what the research has to say.
And at first glance, the answer is a huge, resounding yes. A massive 2024 review looking at 5 decades of research found that, creativity training actually works. That number you see, G equals 0.53, that's what's called an effect size. And trust me, in social science, that is a big deal. It means the impact is real and it's meaningful.
But wait a minute. This is an explainer about critical thinking. So we've got to apply it to the research itself, right? We have to look a little deeper. And when the researchers did that, they found a pretty big catch.
So here's the deal. It turns out that studies finding really positive results are way more likely to get published. It's a known issue called publication bias. On top of that, a lot of the older studies just weren't designed very well. So after the researchers corrected for all that, the real effect size is a bit smaller. Now, it's still positive, but this detail tells us something absolutely vital.
The bottom line is this. Yes, you absolutely can teach these skills, but, and this is the huge but, how you do it is everything. You can't just wing it. It takes a really specific, intentional approach.
Okay, so if the how is so important, what does a powerful method actually look like? Well, it often starts with a major shift in thinking, a framework called project-based learning, or PBL.
Think back to school. Most of us did projects that were kind of like dessert, a fun little activity you did at the end of a unit to show what you learned. With PBL, that whole idea is flipped on its head. The project isn't the dessert, it's the entire meal. It's the vehicle you use to learn all the content in the first place.
And really high-quality PBL isn't a free-for-all. It has some core ingredients. It kicks off with a big, juicy, driving question. Then it's all about digging in, doing real research, giving students a real say in how they solve the problem, and constantly getting feedback to make their work better, all leading up to a final product they share with a real audience, not just the teacher.
So why is this approach so effective? What's the magic sauce here? Well, it's not magic at all. It's actually built on some really powerful and well-tested theories about how our brains are literally wired to learn.
At the very heart of it is an idea from an MIT pioneer named Seymour Papert called constructionism. And the big idea is actually pretty simple, but it's profound. He said that we learn best not when we're just consuming information, but when we're actively making things, tangible things we can share with others. The act of building a robot or coding a game is what makes the knowledge really stick. And Papert's successor at MIT, Mitchell Resnick, boiled this down into something super easy to remember. The 4 Ps: projects, passion, peers, and play. He says that when you get those 4 things working together, that's when you see deep, authentic learning really take off.
Now, let's zoom in on that last P for a second, play. It's so easy to dismiss this as just messing around, but it's so much more. Research from groups like the LEGO Foundation shows that real learning through play has 5 key characteristics. It's got to be joyful, of course, but also meaningful, super engaging, iterative, meaning you try and fail and try again, and it's social.
Okay, so we've got the big philosophy down. That all makes sense. But what about the nuts and bolts? What are the practical, day-to-day tools a teacher can actually use to build these skills in a PBL environment?
One of the most powerful tools out there is a simple framework called CER. It stands for Claim, Evidence, and Reasoning. You can think of it like a recipe for a solid argument. First, you make your claim. what you think is true. Then you back it up with evidence, the actual data. And finally, you provide your reasoning. That's the logic that connects your evidence to your claim. Let's make this super concrete. Imagine the question is, where do turtles go when a pond freezes? Your claim would be this: they survive by brumating at the bottom of the pond. Your evidence would be data about turtle biology and water temperatures. And your reasoning is the part where you explain how that evidence proves the claim, connecting their slow metabolism to their survival.
And this chart right here, this shows exactly why a tool like CER is such a game changer. Just look at this data. If you just immerse kids in a topic and hope they learn to think critically, the effect is almost zero. If you teach it in a separate thinking skills class, it's better. But look at that bottom line. When you teach the skills explicitly and embed them in the subject matter, that mixed approach, the effect size is 0.94. In education research, that is an absolute home run. It's massive.
So the evidence couldn't be clearer. These skills don't just magically appear, and you can't really teach them in a vacuum. You have to teach the frameworks, like CER, and then immediately have students apply them to messy, real-world problems. The two have to go hand in hand.
Okay, so let's zoom back out. We've been deep in the weeds of methods and frameworks, but let's just take a moment to remember. What's the ultimate goal here?
Because ultimately, this is about way more than just a set of teaching strategies. This is a fundamental mindset shift about what education is even for. It's about moving from a system that prizes recalling information to one that develops active, engaged learners who can go out into the world, tackle authentic challenges, and create brand new knowledge.
And that leaves us with one final and maybe one of the most provocative questions of all. Is the true test of this entire approach a score on a test, or is it something bigger? Is it about whether we're creating more thoughtful, more analytical, and more engaged citizens who can actually navigate the wild complexities of our modern world? Because when you think about it, that's what's truly at stake.